industry is describing as eye-watering estimates that the government will lose nearly $8 billion by halting new offshore oil and gas exploration. Cameron Madgwick is the Chief Executive of PEPANZ, the Petroleum Exploration and Production Association of New Zealand, and he's with us now. Good morning.
Morena, Guyon.
I guess it's not a great morning for you, is it, if you're looking at these kinds of revenue reductions from this decision?
Well, it's not a good morning for New Zealanders because these are the revenue reductions to the government. This is a reduction in royalties and tax take from the government. I mean, you mentioned the 8 billion number. Some of the ranges in the report are up to 23 billion. To give that some context, that's the equivalent of employing 5,000 more nurses and 5,000 more teachers for 35 years. Now, these are significant sums of money that New Zealand is going to miss out on.
Yes, but on the other end of the estimation is a $1 billion revenue reduction.
Yeah, so that would be the equivalent of the East-West network road in Auckland. Whichever way you look at it, whether it's the midpoint 7.9 billion, the 23.5 billion high point, or the $1 billion low point, these are lost revenues for New Zealand and New Zealanders that will need to be found somewhere else. And I guess the other point, I suppose, we think and have been saying for some time is there'll be no emissions reduction gains here. This is what the report says. This is what we've been saying since the shock announcement in April. It's really hard to see any worse outcome that could have been delivered here.
Just moving back to the economics of it for a second, because these forecasts seem pretty... Well, they're speculation, really, aren't they? If I look at these papers and it talks about the fiscal return to the Crown, it says the evidence is based on complex modelling, and it goes on to say that because of the number and nature of the assumptions used in the model, there is, quote, relatively low certainty in the accuracy of the figures, which really amounts to saying it could be $1 billion, could be 23 billion, we don't really know.
Well, by that same logic, it could be 100 billion. I think you have to take the data that's been made available to you. It's prepared by MB, it's peer-reviewed by Treasury. If those officials with that expertise can't give you an accurate number, then I think there's a bigger problem. But, we rely on this type of data across our economy in all sorts of ways. I mean, I'd say it's pretty robust.
So why is it that it wouldn't reduce our emissions, this policy?
Well, what's stated in the report, and indeed what we've said a number of times, is that what really matters for reducing emissions, particularly from transport, is on the demand side. Nothing about changing the supply, i.e. looking for oil and gas, reduces the demand, reduces the usage. So what will happen is we'll continue to import oil and gas, and indeed we'll probably import more to fuel those things that we can currently use domestically. So that has to get here somehow, so that's a form of emissions. One of our very large users of gas in New Zealand creates methanol, and they use gas to do that. The next most logical producer of methanol globally, which is a growing commodity, is from China using coal. Coal has twice the emissions of gas. So and this is simple science.
So your message to the government this morning is?
It's time for an urgent reconsideration of this. This was clearly a political decision made without the benefit of any robust science or evidence that's now clearly available from their own trusted officials. It's time to sit down and just really reconsider this and make the right call.
Okay. Thank you, Cameron Madgwick there from PEPANZ. Winston Peters is the acting Prime Minister at the moment, I guess, aren't you?